Okay, quick story. I promise this is relevant to the question. So the other day I was at Target and I was off buying some groceries, and there was a specific list that I was there to buy. And I was walking along when all of a sudden something caught my eye. I turned to look at it, and what do I see? I see a can of soda. Now, I've been cutting back on sodas, which means I'm trying to go for healthier options, but it doesn't matter. Anyways, it was a can of poppy soda. And this immediately caught my eye. I turned my head and I went to inspect the different flavors, and they had flavors there that I hadn't seen before. And so I checked it out, and ultimately I decided to buy a couple of cans of soda, even though it wasn't on my list, even though I had no intentions of buying it, and even though I just passed by and it just so happened to catch my eye. This is what a visual identity system does in practice. I have seen this type of packaging for poppy soda so many times before that it was instantly recognizable for me, and I went and I bought a can of soda. So what's up? My name's Ty and I design these types of systems, and in this video I'm going to explain what a visual identity system is, why you need it, and how to make one. Now, when having a conversation about visual identity, we also have to talk a little bit about branding. So what is an identity system? This is my current definition that I'm running with. It might change in the future, but essentially it is the master rulebook for visual consistency. So another way to think about this is as a blueprint for a consistent look. And the best identities are distinctive, where if you strip away the logo and the text, you can still tell what it is. Or if it's seen just at a glance, it's easily recognizable. So let's say that this bubble here represents a brand, or branding in general. There's a lot of elements that can fall within a brand, but one of those elements inside of a brand is the identity system. Now there's a bunch of other things inside of this brand here that make up the totality of a brand, but one of those things is the identity system. Now the identity system is made up of a couple of core parts. That is the logo, typography, color, and then imagery. So this is stuff like photos or illustration styles. So for example, here on a can of soda, we have the logo. We also have typography in the font choice here and up here, and then everything, every little piece of text here relates to the typography that they chose. And then we have color. So they go with bright colors that relate to the flavor. So this is strawberry lemon, so they're going with pink and yellow. And then imagery. Poppy has this type of flat, simple vector illustration style of a fruit on it. And that's across all of their different flavors of soda. And so the combination of the color, the logo, the text, and the imagery all together create a system that works across many different flavors and is instantly recognizable even when it's a flavor that you haven't seen before. This is also how like Coca-Cola and Pepsi and all those other big soda brands work. Now, the variety and importance of elements differ depending on the project. These elements are always going to be included in any identity, but there are other visual elements which might have to be included depending on the needs of a business. But of course, it extends beyond soda. That also applies to something like a book. So with a book, we have color, we have imagery style, we have the typography, the font choices, and with a book, it's something like how the pages are laid out. So for this book, there's always an illustration and then text on every single page. It's the same, unless they want to showcase something specific, and there's a system for that. So a visual identity can apply to something like a book. It can also apply to a product. So we have the logo, we have color, just the color of the box. We have typography, which on the package here, you might be able to see it. It's embossed, or it's raised up here, so there's texture to it. We have the logo there. And then imagery of the product in use. And with a system like this, you can repeat this. If we had 3 different mice, we could keep this same system, but change out the name of the product and the picture of the product. And because the color and the photos and the typography and the logo all remain the same, if you have 3 different products, it looks recognizable across the entire product line. So these 3 things illustrate how visual identity systems can be put into practice. And when there's a product that someone really likes, the visual identity system creates visual recognizability, which means if you're a scrub like me, you're going to go pay for the product even when you didn't intend to. So here's the system at play here, and this is why visual identity systems are needed by businesses. And it can be broken down into one simple word, which is associations. So branding is simply making associations between 2 things. What does that mean? Let me explain. So this is me. I'm a happy little guy, all right? When I try a can of soda and it goes into my mouth, there's a couple of things that happens. So in my little brain here, okay, this is my brain, it goes like this. It gets really happy because I like the flavor of the soda. So then what happens is whenever I see this logo here, my brain remembers this happening. It remembers being happy and enjoying the flavor. So my brain sees this and then it immediately skips to being happy, and it tells me, hey, you want to get some more of that soda. So what's happening is there's an association between happiness and the soda happening whenever I see this logo or this can. And that is strengthened by these elements here, the visual identity system. So that association is strengthened by the identity system. And because Poppi does a good job at sticking to their identity system and staying consistent, whenever I see a flavor that I've never seen before, but I still recognize it as Poppi, I still make the association even though I haven't tried that flavor. So essentially, Poppi is getting free sales from me simply for having a good product. In other words, a solid visual identity plus positive associations equals repeat purchases or more money. This is really technical, in-depth stuff, but you clicked on the video, so sit there and chew on that for a little bit. Now, there's a couple more reasons why you might want your own visual identity, and that's described in this book here. So this is a big ol' list of different reasons why you might need a visual identity system, and here's a couple of standouts for me. So simply, if you're starting a business, you need a card and a website. A company is going public, they're trying to raise money, the name no longer fits, or you just want to reposition yourself as a brand. No one knows who you are. That's a big reason. If no one knows who you are, part of it is with the visual identity system. If you want to revitalize a brand identity, you have a feeling of embarrassment when you give out your business card. That might be a reason why you need an identity. You can pause it and look through all of these. These are reasons why you might need an identity. And my story at Target earlier illustrated the customer response to a recognizable identity. So now the question arises, how do you make an identity system? Well, it's a 5-step process right here. It looks simple, but there's a lot to it. So the first thing is you conduct research. There's internal and external research. You have to figure out what does your company stand for and who are your competitors? Where do you fit in that type of ecosystem? Then you have to find your strategy. You have to say what's actually going to move the needle and point us to where we want to go. Then there's the actual designing part where you create your logo, you figure out your colors, you create a typography system, you determine the photography and illustration style. And then there's creating the touch points. So this is like, where is your brand going to be seen? Are you going to be seen online, or are you going to be seen mostly in person? So depending on where you're seen depends on the touch points, because you have your website, you have your email, or you have letterheads and you have signs that you need to design. That's all That all depends. And then there's just managing the assets, launching the identity, making sure that everything is organized and usable in the future. Now, if that sounds a little confusing or maybe it's too abstract for you, well, you're in luck. If you want to see how it's done, I'm doing a series where I design a visual identity from scratch. And you can watch the first episode right here. So thanks for watching. Peace out.